Turn to page 170. We're going to concentrate on the first reading today. What I want you to do is notice where the reading is taken from. It's where we've been reading all during Easter. It's from the Acts of the Apostles. But without looking, who is the author? Who is the author of the Acts of the Apostles? Okay, you say, who do you say? Luke. Who do you guys say? Bert, Ernie, who? Who? Paul? Paul. You think Paul? Let's stick with their answer. It's Luke. Now, what other book did Luke write? What other book did Luke write? The Gospel. The Gospel. Now, if you're ever curious, always look what the text tells you. Let's look at the very first verse. The very first verse will help us know that there's more than one book. Take a look. Look what he says. In the first book. So the first book is referring to the Gospel. The Gospel. Now, Luke wrote a 2-volume book. Volume 1, Volume 2. Called Luke Acts. When the church put the Bible together, they separated Acts from the Gospel of Luke. Why? Because they wanted to put all 4 Gospels together. That makes sense, doesn't it? But in order for you to know the primary place for the Acts of the Apostles, where does it come in your New Testament? Where does it come? Where? Right after the Gospels. It's Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, then the Acts of the Apostles. So, what we're seeing in the text today is that Luke is writing a second book. But let's find out who he is writing it to. It's right there in the text. In the first book, Theophilus, I dealt with all that Jesus did and taught until the days that he was taken up. So, he is writing to a man named Theophilus. If you go back to verse 3 of chapter 1 of his gospel, he describes Theophilus as most excellent Theophilus. People have wondered for centuries, who is Theophilus? Because he says most excellent Theophilus, many believe he was a patron of Luke. Friends, papyrus was very expensive in those days. Ink was very expensive. Luke Acts is not short. Okay, it wasn't a tweet. Okay? It wasn't a tweet. And so therefore he had to use a lot more than 124 characters. And so what we've got is, you usually back in those days, you needed a patron to sponsor you for your effort. So a lot of people think that Theophilus is his patron. Isn't that neat? Humor me. Yes. Okay. However, there is another school that says, well, wait a minute. What does the name Theophilus mean? Okay, who's our Greek majors here? Greek. Very simple. We can all do it. Theo is God. Okay? Philos, Philadelphia, means friend. Okay, put those together, you've got friend of God. So could it be that he's writing to all those who consider themselves friends of God? 1, 2, 3. Ooh. Comes later. So it's very possible that he's writing it for you and me. You and I are called to be the modern day Theophiluses. Okay? The gospel, pretty self-explanatory. That's why I wanted to spend our time on this incredible beginning of the Acts of the Apostles. So let's open our hearts and our ears as we listen to God's living word among us. One quick housekeeping chore. Bishop Lynch has asked all the parishes in the diocese to take up a special collection for the victims of the Nepal earthquake. And that special collection will be taken up after communion, and it's being taken up at all our masses today. Would you join me in a moment of prayer, please? Spirit of the living God, fall afresh on us. Spirit of the living God, fall afresh on us. Melt us, mold us, fill us, use us. Spirit of the living God. When I was a young boy, before I got to go play at the neighbor's house, I had to undergo and pass inspection by my mother. I had to get there, make sure I was wearing the right combination of clothes. I smelled good, looked good. But then she would always say emphatically to me, she would look at me and say, "Now, Michael, remember, you're an O'Brien." The last thing she would say to me as I walked out the door to go play with the neighbors in their house, "Michael, remember, you're an O'Brien." Now, I knew exactly what that meant. There was a certain standard that she expected O'Briens to live by. For example, if we burped, we had to say, "Excuse me." It was always to all adults, "Yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am." And we always had to say, "Please," and, oh, your parents too? In our first reading to Theophilus, right before his ascension, Jesus is doing the exact same thing to his disciples. Jesus was reminding the church, that's you and me, that we are to be his witnesses. We are to be his witnesses to the ends of the earth. In the same way, I was to be a witness of the O'Brien family. My mother would say, "Michael, remember you're an O'Brien." I was going to be a witness of their parenting. And by golly, I better get it right. And what is Jesus doing? He's doing the same thing to his disciples. He's saying, "Hey guys, you are going to be my witnesses. You are going to be my witnesses. From now on, I'm not going to be here physically, but you will be my presence. And remember, when you go out into the world, you are witnessing on my behalf. They're going to see you in your actions." In today's gospel, right before the ascension, Jesus informs the apostles, informs the church, informs you and me the kind of witnessing you and I are to do. The witnessing Jesus is asking us, his church, to do. The mission Jesus is sending us out to do. As he ascends, as he says, "Go into the world and proclaim the gospel to every creature." Go out into the world and proclaim the gospel to every creature. To every creature. To the smallest, to the largest, to the youngest, to the oldest. To every creature. Every creature. We cannot discriminate. We cannot be prejudiced. Jesus wants this message to every creature. In order for St. Clement to fulfill Jesus' mission and to be his witnesses, we need resources. Yes, we need your treasure, but we also need your time and your talent. Our Make Your Own Strawberry Shortcake ministry was very successful this year. Not only in the amount raised, but also in the number of parishioners, especially newbies, who got involved for the very first time. Do you remember the name that we have given to our stewardship program here? Jesus First. Jesus first. And why do we say Jesus first? Because if Jesus isn't first in our lives, it doesn't matter how much time, talent, and treasure you give. It's not worth anything. Back in November when I introduced that term, Jesus first, I think I made some of the members of the Finance Council have a heart attack when I said, if Jesus isn't first in your life, and isn't that the purpose for a church? If Jesus isn't first in your life, stop giving, because I don't want money to get in the way. I would much rather have you stop giving and you get your life in order with the Lord first. Because once the Lord is the center of your life, he'll become the center of your family's life, of your work, of your play. Once Jesus is the center of your life, he'll also be the center of how you spend your time, your talent, and your treasure. Now, before Jesus sends out the apostles, before really he ascends, he had a job to do. It is quite evident by the way they acted after Jesus rose from the dead that many of them, if not all of them, still hadn't put Jesus in the center of their lives. I mean, God loved Thomas. He goes around doubting. The others are thinking they're seeing a ghost. Come on, that's Jesus. Oh no, he's a ghost. Doesn't look like Casper to me. Boy, did I just date myself. Woo. Grandparents, you'll have to tell your kids who Casper was. There were others. Jesus had to explain the scriptures again to them to understand that he was the Messiah. And many of them didn't recognize him until the breaking of the bread. In other words, Jesus had to make sure his apostles, before sending them out, had put him in their center of their lives. The apostles had to have Jesus first before they could be effective. And it's the truth. It's the same with us. It's the same with us. And if Jesus isn't first in your life, do everything in your power to make him. That was the challenge of baptism. That's the invitation of Eucharist, that Jesus becomes the center. And once he is the center, then he will give us guidance to allow us to know how best to use our time, our talent, our treasure. Fulfilling the mission that Jesus gives us to proclaim the gospel to the four corners of the earth. And the four corners of the earth for us is Plant City. For you and I to be a witness to every creature in Plant City is going to take everybody's effort. Hear me. I'm not asking and I'm not requesting equal giving of your time, talent, and treasure. I'm asking for the equal effort to be put into sharing your time, your talent, and your treasure. Jesus made plans for the church before he ascended. He installed his church. He gave them the mission. Hey, your mission is my mission. I want you to go out and to fulfill it to every creature. So must we. Why do people remember in their wills institutions that are not their families? It's because these are the institutions they gave to in their life. Because these institutions were doing a mission that they were inspired by, a mission they wanted to also support. When I got transferred to St. Clement, I had to change my will. And I have included St. Clement in my will. I got no plans of meeting Jesus anytime soon. But when that time comes, I have planned to be a steward in death as I have been a steward in life. Next year, we're going to host, both in English and Spanish, a Christian life planning seminar that will assist our parishioners in financial planning. Sometimes some of us just need basic budgeting on how we can do financial planning now and in the future based on spiritual and scriptural principles. In the bulletin today is our third quarter financial report. If you look at it, like I did, I was just overwhelmed with appreciation for those that are making commitments to intentionally be stewards, putting Jesus first of their time, talent, and treasure. And as we do that, together we are making St. Clement thrive and not merely survive. Now in August, we're going to offer you some opportunities to get involved in some new ministries and some other ministries that are already existing in our parish, especially ministries that involve the weekend liturgies, and we're developing new ones for our children's ministries. And we hope that you will prayerfully discern if God is calling you to share your first fruits of your time and talent in those new ministries. Now, next week is Pentecost. I'm going to ask you to help us decorate the church. The color of Pentecost is red. The color of Easter has been white and gold. And we're coming to the end. The 50th day is next weekend, Pentecost. And I'm asking you to wear something red. Even if it is just a red ribbon or a red rubber band. Wear red as a sign that you are a part of the church. You just don't attend church. Friends, you are the church. And wear that red as a commitment to accept Jesus' mission to be our mission, to go into Plant City and proclaim the gospel to every creature. Amen.